So you've stayed calm, you've explained rationally why your child can't have what they want, and they're still tantruming. My name's Jodie Thornton. Let's talk about why sometimes this approach can actually escalate our child's feelings and get in the way of their co-regulation, and then also what it is that your child really needs. I see a lot of people talking about how in this situation, all a child needs is co-regulation, and I have a little bit of nuance to add to that, and I'll give you my rationale as to why. So, what we're told is that if we just stay calm, our children will calm from tantrums. And in my experience, it's just not always true. In some cases, yes. And also, obviously, if we're adding our feelings to our child's feelings, that does make it harder for them to calm down. But us staying calm doesn't necessarily calm our child. And that is because the child's tantrum is coming because they have a need that is not met. And so when we stay calm, that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It doesn't make the problem worse, which us getting upset or yelling or carrying on does, but it doesn't actually solve our child's problem. And this ties into this idea that we should stay calm and explain rationally to your child. The problem isn't that you're explaining rationally. A lot of people will say your child's brain is not in a space to be able to think rationally, and in my view, the vast majority of the time, it's not actually the problem. There are certainly times where a child's brain is so overwhelmed that they actually can't process thoughts and logic. But the vast majority of the time, for most children, not all, we actually find that a child can understand logic so long as that logic is actually getting to the root of the problem. So when we come in with our logic as to why they can't have what they want, that's not solving the problem. And that's why they can't hear it. And that's why it escalates, right? Or at least they're not calming down. Is because what we're trying to help them understand is that they shouldn't expect that to get the strategy that they're looking for. But what they hear is that they shouldn't expect to get their need met. And biologically, we are wired to get our needs met. And so when we tell our child, you can't have this, and they can't tell the difference between you can't have this strategy and you can't have this need met, then that escalates, or at least doesn't calm them down, because we're not actually getting to the root of the problem. What we're expecting is that, this is part of the thing, right? For those of us who are in the generation that are parenting now, the bulk of the culture that we've experienced, not just as children, but also as adults, the bulk of the culture we've experienced is here's how to tell when it's not necessary for you to get your needs met. Right? If we think about what are the messages we receive most consistently, not just as children, but also as adults, is it reasonable for me to get my needs met right now? And if it's not, then I shouldn't be upset about it. And I might be allowed to be sad or disappointed, but only a little bit. I'm not allowed to have excessive emotions. And ultimately, if it's not rational for me to get my needs met, I should probably just not care about that. And that's all culture. That's all what we need to unpack to get to a place where we can fully embrace our feelings and our needs and make decisions that feel like the right decisions for us, to choose which hard things we want to do. There's Glennon Doyle's We Can Do Hard Things. It's not just that we can do hard things, it's how do we choose which hard things we personally want to approach and deal with. All of that is in accepting that our needs are valid and being able to make decisions through using our feelings to get to that place. And so we all have this unpacking to do, and our children don't yet have that unpacking to do, which is helpful because they're not going to have to unpack it. But in the meantime, the strategies that we use to calm ourselves down are all built on this foundation of there are times when I should get my needs met, and there are times when that's not an expectation I should have. With a child who doesn't have that expectation, who shouldn't have that expectation. So good work having a child creating an environment where your child doesn't have that expectation. Because of that, when you say, no, you can't have what you want, and here's the logical, kind reason why, it doesn't land for them. And you'll find that for some of us, our children, when they're calm, they can actually see the logic. Part of that is because the need is not intense at that moment. Part of that is because they are getting from us and from other people, they're getting small doses of this. This is when you should expect your needs to be met, right? So our job is to counteract that. Our job is to actually get them to understand what is the need that's underneath the strategy. So if I want to always have the first drink, if I want to always have the first turn, if I want only to have one type of cup or bowl, if I want to buy something at the shops, like whatever the thing is that I want, we want to be able to help our child unpack what is the need underneath that. Why is that important to them? And once we know what the need is, we can see that there's a million different ways we can get this need met. And the way that they want to get the need met is just one of the ways. Instead of looking at why that way is not appropriate or realistic or possible, what we want to look for is what's the need so we can look for the other solutions. When you start talking to your child rationally about what they do need and what options we have to meet that need, you will find most often, again for most children but not all, they will be able to understand logic and rationality and come back online, right? Even when they're really upset. That just naming the need and that it's valid helps them to calm in one respect. Secondly, being able to identify the valid need is another way that helps them to calm down. So it's the concept there is that even if I can't give you this one thing that you want, your need underneath of that is valid and I'm looking for a solution. That is a way that helps our child to calm down and be able to speak rationally. But then thirdly, sometimes the overwhelm is about the fear or the assumption that they're not going to get their needs met. So when we start talking about what is the need and how do we get that need met, that helps them to engage their rational brain as well. And so you can see it's not necessarily that you're using explanation and logic, it's that you're trying to explain that they can't get their needs met. Or I should say, that's what they hear. You're trying to explain why they can't have this one desire. They hear it as, I can't get my need met. And so what we want to be doing is having the conversation around what is the need underneath the desire and how do we get that need met. Now, if you try having that conversation with your child, that logic and that rationale, and that still doesn't calm them down, that's when we need to use the co-regulation strategies. And that's where we need to use our body language, our tone of voice, the words that we use. That's when we want to use those strategies to help our child regulate their nervous system so as then they can have the conversation. But I always recommend, generally speaking, I recommend doing them at the same time, but where we focus on is if the words aren't helping, then we go really focus on the body language, tone of voice, and word choice. But I think that, honestly, if you can talk more about how do we do get the need met rather than how we can't do the thing that they want to do, you'll find that they're more able to speak rationally even when they're upset in that moment. So if this is something that you're struggling with, in my Confident Connected Parenting program, we're actually looking at all of these pieces. So one is helping you to be able to hold space with your child's big feelings so that they can calm down. And the second piece is about helping you to identify solutions that work for everybody. So we can see that if our focus to avoid tantrums is to always get our child's needs met, that can easily lend itself to our child gets their needs met at the expense of everybody else. And so we really want to get to a place where we can find solutions that work for everybody, not just our child, but everybody. And it's a process. Once you get into the rhythm of it, it's easy to do, but it is a process to get to a place where we're actually looking to solve problems that in a way that works for your child, their siblings if they have any, your partner, your own self, whatever the situation is that you're dealing with, the parameters there. All of that we're looking for. What are the actual solutions that are available that will work for everybody? But then the bigger piece that we're working on in that program is how do we get your child to a place where they can identify those needs before they get overwhelmed, so then they can talk to you about what they need and get a solution to happen before the tantrum happens in the first place. And that is so valuable to them. obviously we don't want to see our children upset, and having them have repeated tantrums is quite a taxing thing for them and for us. But also, being able to identify the need and solve the problem, the more practice they get with you, the more they can do that when you're not there. Or if you'd like to finish a cup of tea and not be the feelings manager of the house, this is the piece where they start to become independent problem solvers. And this is so helpful for your child with their other parent, at daycare or at school, with their friends. This is something that really gets you out of being the person who absorbs everybody's emotions and into the person who helps everybody build their own skills to solve problems together. And so that's the piece that we go through in Confident Connected Parenting. So if you'd like to join that program, you can find it at jodithornton.com/confident connected parenting. And at that address, you'll find the registration details. This course is a one-time payment. So you pay once and then you've got access to the course for as long as it exists. Now, I do kind of plan to run this until, I don't know, I'm extremely old. But should I ever decide to wind it up, I'll give you a year's notice so we can really make sure that you've gotten through all the modules before I close it up. But in that way, you've got this course at the moment to deal with the tantrums you're dealing with at the moment, but then you've also got this as things change, as your child goes to the next developmental stage. Maybe the tantrums come back, or maybe it comes back as sass, or maybe it comes back as being strong-willed and defiant. Whatever happens as your child grows, you'll know you can come back to the course and move through the modules to help you build your child's skill set. In the course, so we have recorded video modules for you to go through in your own time, but we also have live calls. So I do at least 2 calls a month. The reason for this is that how often do you see, whether it's a parenting book or whether it's advice on Facebook, and you see people say, if you just do this, your child will do that. And we know that just doesn't happen most of the time. So the live calls are for you to work through, where you might say, I tried this and this is what my child did and then I didn't know what to do, or I tried this and then I tweaked it to that but I'm still stuck. That's where you can jump on and have a conversation with me in a group setting where we go through what have you tried, what I recommend you try next, and how we can get to that place where your child, so you know how to hold space for your child's feelings, you know how to find solutions so that your child gets their needs met, but then also your child is building the emotional awareness and the communication skills so they can do this when you're not there. So if that's something that would be useful for you, I highly recommend you come and join us. It's jodithornton.com/confident connected parenting for that one. There is also a payment plan available, so there's 12 monthly payments or a one-off payment with a discount. Thank you so much for watching, and please do email me, Jody@JodyThornton, if you have any questions about what I've talked about in today's video, or if you have any questions, any parenting questions that you'd like to see me do a video on. Thanks so much.